Foreclosure and power of sale type listings in Ontario are now up 4 times from the bottom. And that single data point tells you almost everything you need to know about where Toronto housing is headed next. But before anyone panics, this is still a really small share of total listings, but the trend is definitely a bit of a warning shot. People obsess over and like these videos get tons of clicks because people think they're going to get a great deal on a power of sale listing. And sometimes that's true. And we're going to go through it on the call. How much time they spend on market by comparison to the rest of the market, how much they sell for as a percentage of sale to list price ratio by comparison to the rest of the market. And it's pretty clear that you can probably get a better deal if you're targeting a foreclosure or power of sale listing. So mortgage delinquencies in Toronto have more than quadrupled in 3 years. Power of sale listings are rising at a similar pace. The absolute level is still historically low, but it is deteriorating faster than almost anywhere in the country, according to new research from CMHC. And this combination matters because prices are falling and delinquencies are rising, and Ontario is now clearly diverging from the national picture. People are running out of equity to continue solving debt problems with debt. So today I'm going to walk you through the data. I'm going to talk about why this is happening, why it likely gets worse before it gets better. And then I'm going to bring in a good friend of mine, Rob Marsilio from Valery.ca, who's been doing some boots on the ground micro research that frankly complements a lot of the macro issues that I talk about really well. Now, as a quick housekeeping, one of the reasons I focus so much on researching this is because we built a power of sale browsing tool at the Valery.ca website, so you can actually see these listings in real time. That's linked in the description below. As you know, if you've been following me for a while, I've been tracking power of sales longer and harder than anybody else. Anyway, let's start with the headline number. According to Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, or CMHC, nearly 2,800 mortgage holders in the GTA were 90 days or more behind on payments as of September 2025. That's up from 674 just 3 years earlier. It's not up a bit, right? It's up more than 4x. It's still a pretty low number though. 2,800 people in the grand scheme of things is not that high. And yes, full disclosure, I was quoted in this Toronto Star piece, which I'll link below because I think it's important context. But there's some nuance here that matters quite a bit. Even after quadrupling, mortgage arrears are still historically low. If you even look at the CMHC chart, in most places they've been trending down, except for Toronto where they're skyrocketing. But, and this is the key, they were artificially low in 2022. We had payment deferrals, emergency programs, and ultra low rates that suppressed distress in the real estate market. So what we're seeing now isn't just interest rates went up, it's delayed stress finally surfacing during the renewal wave. So this is that pent up supply that we're probably seeing coming on the market. And that matters a lot more than the absolute number. And if you go back to mortgages and arrears back to the 1990s, you can see that even though we're climbing quite a bit, it is pretty low by comparison to past housing cycles, including 2008 and the 1990s correction. But with that being said, banks, they have a lot more lenience in their recourse environment. They're a lot less aggressive and prudent when it comes to trying to solve these files. Back then in the 1990s, at least you had a much more competitive banking environment. There's all the trust companies that were actually being picked off by the banks. And so banks were really quick to want to get these deals off of their books. Now we have something called the Canadian Mortgage Charter. People can declare financial hardship and get an instant amortization extension. You know, during that 90-day period that's recorded by a CBA, you can put your house up for sale, you can work out a payment plan, et cetera. There's a handful of different methods that people are using and banks are using to keep this number low. Another thing to note from this CBA chart that I have up here is that they chart this unemployment rate, which is the top here, alongside the mortgage arrears rate because these two things correlate. This is why I spend so much time covering unemployment. Now, CMHC has been very clear on this. Toronto and Vancouver are seeing the fastest growth in arrears in the country. I don't think I need to explain why. They have higher household debt. They have higher investor concentration. They have rising unemployment. They saw falling prices, which limit your exit liquidity or refi liquidity. And the fastest interest rate shock in 40 years went across all these markets. And this is what stress will look like before it becomes visible in the headlines. And now it's starting to become a mainstream conversation. But here's where it hits the housing market directly. Power of sale and foreclosure listings in Ontario have risen by roughly the same magnitude as mortgage arrears. Again, still a small percentage of total TREB listings, like 1%. Rob's going to cover some of these details with us, but it's rising fast. And this is why I started tracking Power of Sales 2 or 3 years ago, because I found that the delinquency rates weren't making sense to me. And I observed this 4x increase. And I said, a couple of times in videos, we saw a 4x increase from the bottom in Power of Sales. There should be a 4x increase in delinquencies. And now we've finally seen it in the CMHC data in the city of Toronto. Now, one of the reasons you want to pay attention to this is historically, house prices don't rise while for sale activity is increasing. It doesn't mean that prices are going to crash or collapse. It means that price ceilings stay capped. Your sellers are the ones who are distressed, that are more negotiable, that have more urgency than buyers. And CMHC has also been blunt about the risk factor here. As long as people have jobs, things hold together. The danger is labor market shock. Again, why I've been talking so much about unemployment. When you layer in that rising unemployment, slower sales, negative equity risk in condos and detached houses, and a massive renewal pipeline still ahead, it's hard to argue that Ontario has already seen the worst of it. And so my perspective and CMHC's perspective is until we're past that renewal wall, we're probably not in the clear. And this is where my sort of macro view ends and where the micro really matters. I spend most of my time now focused on national housing and macro trends, rates, credit, policy, population. I wish I had more time to analyze GTA micro data, but I have somebody amazing on my team who's an agent at my brokerage at Valery.ca. He's a YouTuber here. He's one of the best. If you're looking for exceptional boots on the ground data on the Toronto market specifically, and to understand how this actually plays out street by street and at a street level, you need someone actually living in that data locally. And that's why I wanted to bring in Rob Marsilio from Valery.ca. He's been tracking power of sale listings, seller behavior, and liquidity at a level of detail that I honestly don't even have the bandwidth for anymore, but also on it, like probably not the intelligence to figure out how he's doing a lot of these things. So in the next segment, we're going to walk through the key question that people get to when they think about buying a foreclosure power of sale property, which is people obsess over, and like these videos get tons of clicks because people think they're going to get a great deal on a power of sale listing. And sometimes that's true. And I went to Rob and I said, look, man, I want to do an updated power of sale video. Full disclosure, they're like one of the best lead gen tools that we possibly have. No call to action that I put out on any platform compares to a power of sale call to action. I think just people are like the sharks swimming, looking for the good deals, right? And so I said, Rob, can you show me if power of sales are actually, if it's actually possible for a buyer to get a better deal on a power of sale? So we looked at, he looked at, and we're going to go through it on the call, how much time they spend on market by comparison to the rest of the market, how much they sell for as a percentage of sale to list price ratio by comparison to the rest of the market. And it's pretty clear that you can probably get a better deal if you're targeting a foreclosure or power of sale listing. Now, there are risks associated with it, and we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. But anyway, I won't get ahead of myself. We'll get into the interview. And again, if you want to explore this yourself, check out the Power of Sale browser on Valery.ca, linked below. It captures about 50% of the power of sales available, just the way that search terms are formatted. Some of them aren't what's available within the public facing. So if you want all of these power of sale listings sent to your email, I'll put another link as well, and you'll get about twice as many as you'll be able to see on the Valery website. And that's just something that we can't control because there's a limit to how much we can give people in a browsing tool. Anyway, let's get into it. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Rob here.
Okay, Rob, personally my favorite YouTuber, to be honest with you. I've been meaning to do, I think we've done like a couple of like reference your stuff and whatever, but I've been meaning to do a video with you, and I figured no time like the present to hit this power of sale stuff, because you're one of the most researched and learned folks in the space when it comes to these micro data points. And I wanted to pick your brain on what you're seeing. So what are we going to cover today?
I'm flattered, Dan. Thank you. Well, what I did is I took some time, pulled some numbers going back to 2010. A lot of buzz about power of sale listings, like you said off the top, this year, last few years, I guess. The question always is like, are you really getting a better deal on a power of sale listing than you are at just something that is out there on the MLS? So
what does the data tell us then?
Yeah, it tells us, I think it's something kind of cool. You might be getting a little bit better of a deal, but it's all relative. And we'll jump into that a little bit too as we get into the video. But Yeah, man.
Yeah. So let's then, like, statistically, it would say maybe you're not going to get a better deal, but you have a higher likelihood of getting a better deal potentially on one of these listings. But what I think a lot of people fail to realize is, like, there's a lot of conditions that come with that, right? One is, if you're buying it as a first time home buyer, as an example, and you've given your landlord notice, you could literally lose the deal until like 2 days prior to closing, right? Because the borrower could actually make a lender whole and then take the deal back at power of sale.
Yeah, they got the right of redemption. Exactly.
Yeah. But then the other piece is, like, you really need a experienced agent who, like, you're not negotiating with like your typical home seller who's done this once or twice in their life. You're negotiating with, shrewd lenders and lawyers, right? So when you're an agent and you're on these kind of deals, what's like sort of the approach that you take?
I kind of give my clients that heads up, right? Like, you're looking at this power sale because you are thinking maybe in the American mindset, the fire
Yeah,
sales that we see down there.
for sure.
What I try to instruct them is that these listings are put together using lawyers. It's the bank's lawyers that are reviewing these things. Even the agents that are pitching these listing presentations. It's, here's our pricing strategy. Here's how we're going to approach it on a week to week basis in terms of price reductions. Like, it's the banks. It's their duty to get as much money as possible for that initial borrower. You're not going to be getting these fire sales. You're also, there's little intricacies like in a normal agreement of purchase and sale, we're including things like chattels that are included, your fridge, your stove, all these things. The bank's not touching any of that stuff. I'll always let clients know, if you show up and there's no appliances, or technically they are the previous borrowers, they have every right to take those things. So,
Yeah.
your warranties and representations, the bank's not making any of that stuff. They aren't living in the property. They don't know about the property. So
As is, where is, right? So you
exactly,
take a lot of risk in that regard.
a lot of risk from that buyer perspective. So, in the few deals that I've done in the power sale space, one of them was a first time home buyer, but it was a situation where he's got his own contracting company. He kind of went with it eyes wide open. He knew what to expect and all these things. You've got to be a specific type of buyer, I feel, for these power of sale opportunities. It's not the 95% of buyers that are going to be in on these things for the deal, for like just a move in ready property. It's a specific buyer that's looking at these properties.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like you really got to be willing to play tennis a lot on the paperwork as well, like bounce it back and forth. Cause like, you can go in with a low ball and they're not going to take it right away because they have to meaningfully illustrate that they made an effort to get market value for the property as well, right? Like, the biggest sign backs that I ever see, a sign back is when you kind of send a deal back and forth. The biggest sign backs that I've ever seen in my whole life are always on power of sale deals. It's got to be like, 10, 15 times back and forth I've seen.
Totally. Yeah. And I think even on that point, Dan, offer nights were the rage, right? For mid 2020 to early 2022, everything was an offer night. Even these power of sale situations, you'll usually notice an offer date, but I always tell buyers, like, we're not approaching this like an offer night situation. That's just because, again, that lender wants to make sure the property's on market for enough time to get enough eyeballs on it, and making sure that those first round of offers are going to be, in and around what they're expecting. So you're not going in there. You might have to wait a little bit to make an offer on these power sale properties, but like you said, it's all about playing that. I like that tennis match, right? That back and forth between you and that lender's representative, trying to get the best deal possible for you as a buyer, for your clients.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the other piece that you'll often see, and you see this with estate sales as well, and this will be the last piece before we get into the data, you'll often see on power of sales that they have like a long irrevocable period requested. And it's not because they're like, some people use the like 48-hour irrevocable to generate a bidding war, right? It's different than having an offer date. But in a lot of cases, that's not their intention. It's literally just that the deal needs to get collected by the agent, then it needs to go to the lawyers, and then it needs to go to, in many cases, a credit committee, right, at a lender. So there's like, they actually need that 2-day time window to get the deal done. And that 48 hours exposes you to potential other offers, competing offers coming in, makes the process of negotiating a deal really slow. So there's a lot of nuance to these things. And that's why I wanted to have you especially on, because I know you've done a lot of these deals. I know you're an exceptionally good agent. I wanted people to maybe give you a shout if they're looking to do these kind of deals.
Always. Yeah. I'm here for it.
Cool, man. Okay. So talk to me about, like, I know you've done a bunch of research on this. Bring the charts up. Now's the time. And we'll go through sort of what it looks like when you go to, let's just do like percent of total right now, the stuff that you had in Excel.
Sure.
We've seen a huge increase in power of sales, the dramatic headlines, 4x from the bottom, but as a percentage of total, it's like not a huge amount, right?
No, not at all. I'm just pulling it up right now. I might, spoiler alert, the total amount here too, but here we go. Trusty Excel. So again, the caveat here, Daniel, that we'll share with people too, is that even as realtors, there's no special power of sale button that we can click or vendor take back
Yeah.
button, right? Like we are doing searches based on keywords. And the two most common keywords I think that pop up on these power of sale deals are the words power of sale in the seller name or the word mortgage. So this is tracking the entire GTA. And by GTA, I mean from, Durham in the east, York in the north, Halton to the west, and you have Peel and Toronto in there as well. Um, it is the highest share of power of sale listings we've seen, but it's still only about 1.4% of active listings right now that contain these two words, um, power of sale or mortgage in the seller's name. So that's not quite at the peak that we saw at the end of last year. A lot of that had to do with volume dropping, but the number of power of sale listings not dropping quite as quickly, right? That got up to closer to 1.5, I guess, at one point last year. I wouldn't be surprised to see this number continue to climb in early 2026, the year that we're in right now. So when you look at the entire picture, right, we peaked out at 286 power of sale listings by this metric. That was back in October of last year. And in early 2026, this is as of February 9th, that I do this every single week. I track these numbers. So we're up at 272 again now. You can see last year on the same time, we were dipping down. It was still below 150 active kind of power of sale listings in the GTA.
Awesome. Yeah. It's interesting, right? Because you observe that big increase, but then we've sort of like plateaued, right? Like as both new listings on a monthly basis, and new listings for power of sales are tough because they're like very likely to get relisted, right? So there's those components. Now, talk to me a little bit about the other metrics that we use about like, am I going to get a good deal on these things? Like, this like statistical likelihood. How do we measure the statistical likelihood of somebody getting a better deal on a power of sale than something else? I threw these two data points at you, and you obviously collected them exceptionally well. So number one, I wanted to know how long are they spending on the market by comparison to other properties? And then number two was, what's the sale to list price ratio relative to other properties? So
I think those are the two best. Yeah, the two best. I totally agree with you, Dan. So we'll start with those listing days on market, just so everybody's aware. This is just for a specific listing, right? You talked about terminations and relistings. Property days on market would capture that, but there's no real good way to track that still in Ontario. Maybe you can share something with me, Dan, but not that I'm aware of. But you can see there's a clear, there's a clear gap, clear spread between, at least annually, how long power of sale listings stay on the market. That's his red line versus where we're at with just kind of regular listings, I guess, normal MLS listings. So as of 2025, I guess our most recent full year that we have, it was 31 days on average for a listing to sell, whereas it was 42 days for a power of sale listing to sell. So those properties do sit on the market a little bit longer. You and I know as realtors, those are the properties you're usually targeting as good deals for your clients, ones that have been sitting for a little bit longer on the market. So there's definitely a little bit more time with these power of sale listings than you're seeing with just your generic run-of-the-mill normal seller listing, I would say.
Yeah, 100%. It is also just remarkable to see the increase in the days on market period, which is
exactly
crazy.
Back in those crazy days, 15 days. This is average days on market too. Like the median days on market was even less than this. I think it was like 7 back then, right? It was just throw the sign up a week later, the place is sold in an offer, and that's kind of how things were going.
Three P's of real estate, right? Price, put a sign up, and pray.
Exactly. That's it. You didn't even have to pray back then. You have to pray now.
Yeah.
The other metric, because I don't know, maybe we talk about why we didn't want to use average price for this one because it is an aggregate measure, right? I think looking relative to list price, we all know list price is just a marketing tactic as well, but I think it's a better indicator as to, are you going to get a better deal on these properties than regular listings? So
for sure,
if we look at that, it's sale price is a percentage of list price is how I call it. I know sell price to list price ratio people call it, but anyways, again, red line being your power of sale listings, blue line being your normal listings. Last year, our sale listings on average were selling for about 95% of the list price, whereas your regular listings were up 98, 99% of the list price. If you're looking at that sticker price as a buyer, chances are you're going to get a better discount to list sale listing than you are on just your regular run-of-the-mill listing right now.
Yeah, I guess it becomes one of those challenges. And again, I think this is where it's nuanced, and you want to have like an agent who really knows their stuff in your corner, because in a lot of cases, these power of sale listings do list a little bit high because they have to be protective of the seller's equity, and then they'll sort of go through price reductions. So if somebody starts negotiating early, it could end up transacting. There could be a skew there, but I would argue that even if there was, to see it being, a difference of 25 basis points is substantial enough that I can confidently say to people there's probably a higher likelihood that you're going to get a good deal on a power of sale listing. I think the caveat is the things that we discussed earlier, which is you're assuming a lot of risk. So that better price that you're getting might actually be just a pricing in of the risk that you're taking with this type of deal, right?
Correct. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. Fair. Okay. Anything else you wanted to add on this before we wrap it up?
I don't think so. These are the big ones. Again, what I would offer is that if you want anything broken down specifically by region, by where you're living at, I'm always happy to put these charts together. I love doing that kind of stuff too. Yeah, man.
Sweet. Yeah, no, I really appreciate it, Rob. Yeah. And everybody check out Rob's channel. I'm going to put him as a collaborator on this video. So you can just subscribe to his. He's going to repost the same video, I think, with a different intro. It'll probably be way better than mine. So I would encourage you to go watch that. But also, we have a tool on the Valery website that you can go and browse these listings. It only captures about 50%. So if you want to get and there's a lot of nuance in how we search for them that we just can't get more than that 50% number publicly available on a website. But if you want more than that and you want them for your list, for your neighborhood or whatever, contact Rob and he'll get you set up, and we'd love to help you buy one in this year. Cause I think this trend's only going to continue. We're only going to see more of these come online as we get through this renewal wall, probably this year and next year. And then I think that as an opportunity category, it starts to fade, right? So for people who are looking and who can bear all of the risks and costs associated with it that we just mentioned, it could be a decent place. I think that's why you start to see these the blood in the water kind of sharks swimming, circling when the market starts to turn a little bit. Rob, thanks a lot for your time, man. Really appreciate it.